this is how you build a business that you'd never want to retire from. Because at a certain point in your business journey, the question of can I make money stops being the most interesting thing that you can ask. You already know you can, and you've spent many years becoming valuable. And along that way, you've accumulated expertise, intellectual property, reputation, relationships, judgment, lived experiences, different interests, deep obsessions, scars, taste, and often like interestingly sophisticated ideas. What you've actually created is what I think is the highest level of selling, which is you've built a model of reality that's inherently valuable. And that's one of the most exquisite assets we can own. And you want to make a lot more money. What's changed is that the standard for how you're willing to make it, because you don't just want a larger business. You want to build the definitive business and the body of work of your life. A business that produces considerably more profit without demanding more of your calendar, your team, your attention, and your constant performance. A business where the right people recognize the full value of your expertise. They buy it readily in the right form. They get extraordinary results and they pay you exceptionally well for it. A business that becomes more valuable, more leveraged, more enjoyable, and more alive as it grows. And a business that you would gladly spend the next decade or two of your life compounding because every year stacks on the previous year instead of forcing you to start over. So this is for a very specific kind of founder because honestly, most people are just chasing a get rich quick scheme. And most people spend their life accumulating more strategies, more offers, more funnels, and more opportunities. And they're addicted to the volatility. But eventually, if you're not retarded and you pay attention to what's going on, you get inherently that accumulation is not the deeper game. The deeper game is integration, architecting everything that you've become into a fucking masterpiece that compounds in value for decades. And so before I go any further, I'm going to be very clear who this is for. You have built a business around real expertise. You have a proven offer. You've created meaningful results for customers and clients. Your business already makes money. So you're not trying to prove that someone will pay you for what you know. The issue is right now, your business is only monetizing a fraction of the expertise, the IP, the trust, and the value that you built because you're positioning your offers, your acquisition, and your business model is not yet where it needs to be to actually help you transfer the most amount of value to the most number of people in a way that feels really good. And you want to make considerably more profit without multiplying your calendar, your team, your complexity, or having to constantly perform. And you're ready to stop jumping from one short-term opportunity to the next and actually build an enduring body of work that becomes more valuable, exponentially more valuable over time. So, if you are just starting out, you may still find this useful, but honestly, you haven't been in the game long enough to fully appreciate the problem that I'm describing or the solutions that I'm going to take you through. This is for the founder who's already done something of note, who's already created value, and now needs a business that's capable of fully expressing, monetizing, delivering, and compounding that value. So the commercial problem that this entire thesis is built to solve is very simple. You have valuable expertise, but your business isn't efficiently, enjoyably, and profitably turning that expertise into greater recognition, reach, revenue, assets, and wealth for you. And the larger possibility that I'm putting on the table is much more profound, which is that your business can become the economic expression of your deepest work. It can help you create extraordinary value for other people, make exceptional profit, build real wealth, give you more freedom, energy, and creative capacity as it grows. Most people, they do this backwards, right? The bigger the business gets, the worse their life gets. The bigger the business gets, the less time they have. The bigger the business gets, the less energy they have. The bigger the business gets, the less creative they feel. They feel dull, they feel flat, and now they're handcuffed by the money that they're making. We want to do the exact opposite, right? And I call this getting paid to exist. Paid to exist is the operating system for turning what makes you come alive into extraordinary value for the right people. Then we build the positioning, the IP, the offers, the acquisition, the delivery, the leverage, systems, assets, the entire economic architecture that allows that value to travel well beyond your personal time. economically, we're building towards a $500K to $3 million a year profit business with very high margins, predictable recurring revenue, a lean team, and a mostly empty calendar. And that way, most of your working time actually goes into the things that you're exceptionally good at and genuinely want to keep doing. But Pay to Exist is not just a model for monetizing expertise. I'm creating this manifesto because I want to get the essence of this across to you. And at its core, this is a philosophy of entrepreneurship that's built around integrating all the currencies that actually matter. Money, super key, but also meaning, mojo, freedom, and wealth, right? The economic, operational, creative, psychological, erotic, and spiritual dimensions of your business aren't separate problems to solve after, right? They're parts of one living economic process. Something alive and valuable inside you takes recognizable form. It enters into relationship with the market. It creates a result for someone else, and it comes back to you as profit, freedom, energy, assets, wealth, and a greater capacity to create again. So in this manifesto, I'm going to show you where that movement breaks down for most people, why the default expertise business model keeps demanding more of your personal performance, and how Pay to Exist redesigns the entire fucking architecture. So we'll move from the work that you're uniquely here to do through differentiation, monetization, leverage, delivery, acquisition, and assets. And then we'll follow the return of money, time, energy, and choice that I call sovereignty. And then we'll look at the founder that you must become to actually hold it all and create all of this. And by the end, you'll be able to see the whole thing as one process. And you can decide if this is the game you want to spend the next decade of your life playing. And, personally for me, I'm in this for life. I've spent more than 15 years developing and applying this approach. I've built a multi-million-dollar business for myself around these principles, and I've helped over 1,500 founders across 6, 7, 8, and 9-figure businesses do the same. Collectively, these people have generated over $2 billion, including a dozen successful exits. And the meta pattern to me is very clear, right? The same expertise can produce radically different results and radically different life for the founder, depending on the business that you build around it. So let's begin with the business that's actually worth building. Because the next game for some of you is actually to build your masterpiece. Because to me, the real opportunity is actually to bring together everything that you've become in one place. So it creates extraordinary value for other people. It creates extraordinary wealth for you, and it creates a body of work that's worthy of your life. That possibility led me to the question that I've chosen to build my own life and business around, which is, what is the masterpiece only I could build, and how wealthy, alive, and free could I become by building it? And by that, I don't mean one perfect product or one perfect offer or simply a business that makes a lot of money, right? Making money is easy. I know for some of you that it might not feel like that, but it truly is. Your masterpiece, the thing that's hard, is actually what I think of it as mathematical perfection in the business itself, right? Your masterpiece is the business itself. To do this exceptionally well, without the trade-offs that every entrepreneur basically forces themselves to digest, trading off money for their health, trading off their health for their relationships, trading off all those things for the, excitement, adventure, travel, all the things that they actually want to do. Getting the perfect intersection of all these things, essentially, to put it bluntly, like having it all, that's the thing that's hard. So what we want to do is we want a living, evolving body of work that brings together everything that we've become, our deepest interests, our expertise, the insights that are hard won from just being in the arena, our unique way of seeing, our creative and economic ambition. We don't want to exile any part of us. We want to bring all these things together, right? We want an economic engine that can hold all of this, that can allow our work to reach more people, create insane value, and actually compound into profit, freedom, and wealth for us. So this must evolve as you evolve, and it must become more valuable because you become more valuable, right? I'm sure you see people, they change their niche every couple of years. They're selling something new. They're selling something different. They burn this down. They start over. Mostly that happens because they're thinking very short term, right? They're solving for the here and now. They're not thinking in terms of decades. So they're not building the container that can hold them through their evolution, through, the things that they care about changing, like the evolution of their own obsessions. So the container that they build, it just stops fitting after a while. And often after they solve the money problem, they lose all energy and passion. And then they need to find either a crisis that they manufacture to feel something again, or, they go find the next wave, the next trend. We don't want to do that. If you do, this is probably not for you, right? The game that I'm playing is the infinite game of entrepreneurship. The game that I want to play is the one in which I'm getting paid to continue to actualize into the greatest version of myself and keep creating at my highest level. And that's the game that I'm trying to invite you into playing. Because the business that you have right now isn't just producing revenue, right? It's also producing your life. Your business, the model that you've constructed, it determines what you spend your days doing. It determines what problems occupy your mind. It determines what people you interact with. It determines how many people and moving parts you manage, right? How much complexity you carry, how much pressure you feel, what you get to create, what you get to say, right? Like how much freedom you have to actually actualize into the greatest version of yourself. Because every offer creates a particular kind of calendar. Every business model assigns you a particular role. Every way of acquiring customers creates a particular relationship with attention. Every way of delivering value determines how many people, systems, hours, and decisions that the business requires. So when you scale a business, you're not just scaling revenue. You're scaling a particular way of spending your finite life. And that's why I'm not interested in just helping you build a bigger business just for the sake of making it bigger, right? I'm interested in helping you build a business worth devoting your one precious life to. And I want it to be the thinnest, lightest business capable of delivering the greatest amount of value to the right people efficiently, profitably, and enjoyably. That means as few unnecessary people, meetings, offers, systems, and moving parts as possible. Every part of the business should earn its existence, right? Because true elegance, true intelligence to me is simplicity. When we're holding a lot of bloat on the body, like we know inherently that that's not good, right? If someone's very overweight, we get inherently that that's not a good thing. Why do we tolerate that in business? Why do we spend so much time doing stuff that doesn't really move the needle? Why do we waste so many hours doing things that are ineffective? Like, why aren't we chasing mathematical perfection? Why are we not chasing the state where we do the fewest possible things that are so valuable and so leveraged that it produces the greatest possible growth in the business, that produces the most exquisite, extraordinary life for us? And that's why I think, most people who watch this will be turned off and should be turned off, because most people are addicted to complexity. Most people are addicted to hiding in their business and avoiding the stuff that's truly meaningful, because that's confronting, right? It forces us into an existential inquiry. How do we want to spend our life? What do we want to spend our time doing, right? So much more than just fucking making money. And at some point, making money is important, and that's the right thing to focus on. Earlier in your journey, will this make more money may have been enough to make a business decision, right? And that was absolutely the right question to ask, and that's the right thing to do. But at some point, it stops being that, because at some point you realize that you can build something highly profitable and still not want the life, the work, or the role that comes with it. It doesn't mean that you become less ambitious. It's actually an escalation of ambition, right? There's this whole trend, of people who have become gurus and influencers online, who've been indoctrinating this entire generation of entrepreneurs that ambition is primarily monetary. And if you try to prioritize other parts of your life, that's actually a lack of ambition. It's actually the exact opposite, right? It's honestly quite retarded to trade a finite currency for an infinite currency. Like, your time, your attention is finite. Your energy is finite. You get to choose how to allocate this very, very, very finite resource. for something that is infinite, which is money, right? And personally, I refuse to choose between becoming extraordinarily wealthy and feeling completely alive. I refuse to accept that meaningful work should require sacrificing exceptional economics. I refuse to accept that freedom requires removing myself from the work that turns me on, that I'm uniquely capable of doing, or that success should consume all my energy, all my creativity, all my relationships, and all my life, right? I also don't think that the ultimate goal is freedom from work. The other flavor of just complete unintelligent thinking is this idea that, you know, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to scale this thing. And then I'm going to scale myself out of doing the thing. So now I'm just managing a bunch of people. And then eventually I'll sell the thing and then I'll have a bunch of money and then I'll be free. That is the most retarded way to think about business, right? Your business is the exact opposite when it's built right. The ultimate goal is not freedom from work. It's freedom to spend your life doing the work that you would never want to retire from. Like, I've coached many, many, many founders who've exited for 7 figures, 8 figures, and 9 figures. And generally post-exit, they go immediately into a depression spiral because they've lost their sense of purpose. They've lost their mojo. They have nothing to wake up for. And then they spend the next few years, either figuring out like what they want to do now, or they jump into another business opportunity because, they miss having, a point of focus to organize their entire consciousness. Do not see business, if you want to avoid regrets later in life, do not see business as something that if you work hard enough, you can eventually escape. That's not the way to play the game of business. Then it stops being a fucking game. Then it stops being something you're playing, right? The whole goal is to make this so sustainable, so enjoyable, so profitable, so efficient that you could do this forever, right? You want your work to be so meaningful, so energizing, so absorbing, so valuable that you would still do it if you didn't need another dollar from it. So I think about this, obviously, as you can tell, in very different ways, right? So I like asking a radically different economic question. What if, pay close attention, what if the work you would choose after becoming financially free could actually become the work that creates financial freedom in the first place? Like, what if the thing you would do, right, when you reach that fantasy that you have in your head, and when you're financially free, you have 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, $100 million in the bank. What if doing that now actually gets you to financial freedom faster, easier, while having more fun? Like, what are you uniquely here to explore, create, and become world-class at? What's the body of work that would integrate your deepest interests, your accumulated expertise, your unique way of seeing, and the economic ambition that you have? And what's the business architecture that would allow every year that you devote to that work to deepen your mastery, to strengthen your intellectual property, to grow the audience for your ideas, and make your brand harder to compare? Like, what would allow the product, systems, assets, profit, and wealth surrounding that work to keep compounding for decades, right? If you're done playing short-term games with short-term people, if you're done organizing your business around whatever can make money the fastest and starting over every time the opportunity changes, then like this whole fucking manifesto is for you. Because like the faster something grows, the faster it also shrinks. Like 67% of companies that make the Inc. 5000, within 2 years, they've either dramatically shrunk or they're out of business, right? Like, instead of trying to get rich fast, it's actually so much superior to try and get rich slow. Like, the person who just decides to be in the game forever usually wins because most of the gains in business are compounding. They're long tail. Like, all the people that you see blowing up, they didn't start yesterday. They didn't start doing the thing last year, right? There's probably like 5-10 years of stuff of them being in the arena that you didn't see. So you want every year of your work to deepen your mastery, to strengthen your IP, to grow your audience, and to make the entire business more valuable. So this is the shift from opportunity chasing to body of work building, right? That's how the business becomes your masterpiece. So now we need to see where the value that's required to build it is currently being lost, where it's leaking. So at the simplest level, an expertise business has one fundamental job. Everything I do is based on first principles, and this has taken me a very long time, an embarrassingly long time, to distill into one statement what the whole point of the game is, right? It's to transfer more of the right value to more of the right people efficiently, enjoyably, and profitably. So you want to be selling the thing you actually want to sell, right? We can get paid to do a lot of things. I don't want to get paid to do most of those things, right? I want to be able to choose what I want to get paid to do because that determines what I spend my time doing. It needs to go to the right people, right? If it's leveraged, then it doesn't really matter who's consuming it. But if someone has access to you and proximity to you, they better be the right people, right? They better be people you want to be around. If you don't actually like your clients, then you're engaging in an act of self-betrayal every time you sell your fucking time to people who you don't want to be around. And you want to do this efficiently because inefficiency is retarded. You want to do this enjoyably because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, if you don't enjoy your business, like what the fuck are you actually doing? Like, why are you doing that to yourself? Have you convinced yourself that you have to suffer to make money? And then profitably. Like if you're not making profit, and the number of entrepreneurs that I talk to who have huge top line numbers, but the amount of profit is like, it breaks my brain. Like it's so stupid to have a business that does $10 million and only profits 500K. You could have a business that does $2 million and generate $1 million in profit, and you would have a much better life, right? It's so much more about profit than it is about revenue, because the greater the revenue that you're generating, generally, not always, but generally, there's a lot more complexity you have to hold. And that complexity is being held in your nervous system. So you already have value inside you, right? You have expertise, you have judgment, you have experience, you have a unique perspective, you have methods that you developed, you have IP, you have relationships, you have the ability to sell, you have the ability to create a result. But none of that becomes economically valuable just because it exists inside you, right? That's just potential energy. Your business has to help the right people recognize that value, buy it, receive it, use it, and experience a result that they care about. So there's a whole loop over there, right? And you can think of it like a customer journey. It also has to capture enough of that value as profit, and it needs to retain enough of what you create that the business becomes more valuable over time, right? And of course, enough of that profit needs to be invested into assets so you as a person become more valuable in terms of your net worth. Just because you have a business that makes money doesn't mean that you as an individual are increasing in sovereignty. So if you're not making more money than you currently are, if you're not having more fun, and if you're not experiencing more freedom, the problem generally isn't your expertise or your skill set, right? There's a gap between the business you built and the architecture that's actually required to produce the outcomes you want. And intelligence is really just a measure of your ability to get the outcomes that you want in life, right? This gap, it appears in 5 places. So I'm going to walk you through each of those 5. The first one is value creation. So there's a value creation gap because the business isn't organized around the work that's most valuable that you can do, your core genius, your unique unfair advantage in the market. You may already love the work itself, right? But too much of your week is spent on the lower value execution surrounding it. You're doing too much of stuff that doesn't matter or need to be done by you. Or the business may still monetize a narrower or earlier version of you, not what you're truly world-class at. So the business can make money while still leaving your deepest interests, your best ideas, your most energizing abilities on the sidelines. And you feel this when the business leaves you less lit up, less inspired, and less creatively alive than the quality of work actually should. You want the stuff that sets your soul on fire to become the economic center, the economic engine of the business. It shouldn't be something you squeeze in around it. The next gap is differentiation, which is the market can't clearly see what makes your work different, why it matters, or why it's worth more, right? People who actually talk to you and work with you, they may get your value, right? They may get why you're different. They may get why you're unique. They get why you're special. But strangers might see yet another coach, consultant, advisor, expert, agency owner, educator, or creator. And as a result, you have to do more explaining, more content, put more pressure on sales calls, engage in, more price comparison. And the people you actually want to work with, right, the best fit buyers, they never realize that you're the person they've been looking for. So you want the right people to encounter your work and quickly, keyword quickly, understand why you're the obvious choice. You don't want to expend a lot of time, energy, attention, effort in convincing people why you're the obvious choice, why you're the right choice. If it takes less energy in the form of all those things, but also, content and ad spend and all that stuff, your business becomes radically more efficient, right? Because you see the problem differently. You have something that they can't get anywhere, and you have a unique and superior way of producing the result. But people need to understand that. And this is so much more important now in the whole AI era, because AI can increasingly produce extremely competent information, really polished content, right? All the frameworks, all the funnels, all the business tactics. I've had my entire business, I was going to say cloned, but they can clone the copy and the funnels and the things, but they can't clone me, right? Just like that, they can't clone you. This is going to happen more and more and more, right? And you can see, because everyone starts sounding the same, everyone's using the same AI generated content, and people can see through that, right? What AI can't reproduce is the thing that makes you human, the thing that makes you unique, right? AI doesn't have the time that you've spent in the arena, the judgment that you've developed, the experiences that you've had that have shaped how you see the world, the standards that you've built by actually sticking to some fucking values, by having a vision, by doing something hard, the original ideas that you've earned by doing the fucking work, right? And the particular way of seeing your model of reality that has come together through your painstaking and meticulous dedication to your craft. Okay, the next gap is monetization. So your buyer, your offer, your pricing, your economic model currently capture only a fraction of the value that you're creating. So you may produce extraordinary results, but you might still be undercharging, over-delivering. You might be selling the wrong level of access. You might be serving customers who can't fully value the work, right? Or you may use a delivery model where the cost and complexity consume way too much of the revenue. So the business works, but the value you create doesn't come back in the form of profit, margins, predictable income, and the wealth. So you want the right people paying exceptionally well for the right result through offers that are profitable, compelling and easy to buy, and genuinely enjoyable for you to deliver. Because that's the business we actually want to be scaling. And then you have the leverage gap. So here, more demand still requires more stuff from you, more content, more selling, more delivery, more decisions, right? Bigger team. And you may already have products, IP, automation. You may have built courses. You may have all that stuff, right? You may even have a team. But you might find that as the business gets bigger, your calendar gets busier, the team gets heavier, right? you become the decision bottleneck, so everything comes back to you, or the quality of the work starts to thin out. Like, you're not producing the best work, people aren't getting the best results, everything is starting to get more diluted. So here, you either keep supplying more of yourself by pulling from other areas of your life, right? Your HRV score looks horrific. You sleep like shit. You don't really move your body. You feel stiff. Your relationship or marriage gets the scraps. You either do that, right? Or you accept a ceiling on growth. You curtail your ambition. Or, like some of the people that I meet, you hesitate to scale because you actually don't want more of what the growth currently requires, right? If you actually double the business, you would fucking hate your life. You're already maxed out, right? So most people who want to scale, but they get stuck, it's because the model that they're running is going to lead them into more pain. We don't want that, right? What you want is revenue, profit, customer value to grow faster than your workload, your headcount, and your complexity, while your best thinking, your best assets reach more people without losing what makes it more valuable. We actually want the opposite. The bigger the business gets, the more potent the value becomes. We want the system to gain value as it grows, right? We want network effects in a business. The last gap is compounding. So here, too little of what you create today becomes economically valuable and useful tomorrow. So you have amazing insights on a call, disappears. Content means you have to create more content, right? You have a great, amazing, successful launch, which means you need another amazing, successful launch. Revenue comes in, but very little of it is recurring. You're not stacking IP. You're not building an audience asset, right? You're not stacking systems and wealth. So the business may be successful. You might be making money, but every month still feels like another round in the hamster wheel. So you're always producing, performing, and starting over, right? What you actually want is every month and every year to begin from a larger base and a higher floor. So most people, the way they try to grow their business is they try to raise the ceiling. And what happens when you try to raise the ceiling and your floor stays the same is that you're increasing the gap between your floor and ceiling. When you increase the gap between your floor and ceiling, your nervous system starts freaking out. Also, you increase the volatility. So you have more, bigger peaks and valleys. So volatility is very hard to hold for a nervous system for a long period of time. Eventually, that's going to burn you out because you're basically living in fight or flight. We don't want that, right? Your expertise, your IP, your audience, your reputation, your recurring income, your systems, and your wealth should keep working long after the original act of creation. So you want to expend energy once, you want to expend time and attention once, and you want to keep getting a return on that for years and decades. Now, these 5 things aren't separate, right? They're the 5 places where the value of your expertise is being lost. Efficiently means the value can reach more people without requiring a proportional increase in your time, headcount, delivery burden, or complexity. Enjoyably means the business increasingly concentrates your time around the work that you actually love, that you're unusually good at, and would genuinely want more of as the business grows. Profitably means the business captures enough of the value that it creates to produce strong margins, recurring income, assets, and wealth. And more people doesn't necessarily mean the largest possible audience. For one founder, the right architecture might transfer extraordinary value to 20 very sophisticated customers at a very high price. For another, it might allow one idea, methodology, product, or piece of software to improve the lives of 100,000 people. So the real question is whether the architecture fits the expertise, the customer, the result, the economics, the founder, and the life you actually want. So one of my clients, Eli, is a powerful example of this. So when we started working together, he was making 40 to 50K a month. He had a great business, solid expertise, was getting amazing results for his people. He had an audience and he had a successful offer. The business also relied on his constant output and expressed only a fraction of what actually made him valuable. So we reorganized the business around more of what he was uniquely good at. His positioning and content made that expertise easier to recognize, and the offers gave people clearer ways to buy and receive it. 18 months later, he had his first $280,000 month while traveling through Europe with his fiance. And 4 months after that, Eli just had his first $665,000 month while taking a month mostly off in Tahoe and working less than he's ever had in the history of his business. That growth came from making more of his expertise visible in the market and building the right offers that could monetize it without requiring him to work 15 times harder to grow the business 15x. And Eli is just one of many founders who've used Pay to Exist to build multiple six-figure years, six-figure months, and six-figure weeks. And this is a great visual way to understand the difference, right? In the pay to perform paradigm, you're just running on the treadmill because more money still requires more personal performance. Pay to Exist, we scale the pattern rather than the performance. We compound and propagate a regenerative loop around your expertise. So the opposite of a pay to exist business is a pay to perform business. And this is the default economic paradigm, right? Pay to perform means that making more money still requires more of your personal performance, more creating, more selling, more delivering, more deciding, more managing. Maybe the business needs your next piece of content to create demand. Maybe it needs sales conversations to close a deal. Maybe it needs your judgment to solve the problem. Or maybe it just needs your presence all the time to produce the result. You may love the work, but the problem is too much of the business starts over when you stop performing. So the practical test for this is very simple. If you stop publishing, selling, deciding, intervening for 30 days, what actually happens in your business? What slows down? Is it demand? Is it sales? Is it customer results? Is it your team? Potentially, is it all of the above, right? If it's super reliant on you. So whatever you named is the part of the business that still depends on your repeated performance. And with Pay to Exist, we don't try and remove you from the work that matters, right? We don't want to destroy the source of energy, of passion, of aliveness. We want you to keep doing the work where your presence and judgment actually makes a big difference. But we want to redesign everything else so people can recognize, buy, receive, and benefit from your value without requiring you to recreate it every time. So you remain the source of the distinctive intelligence without having to remain the delivery mechanism for every unit of value. So this isn't just a collection of business growth tactics. This is an invitation to play a completely different game. So to understand that game, we need to look at what a business actually is, right? At a most basic level, a business is an architecture for transferring value. So Pay to Exist asks a series of questions. What's the value that should move? Where does it originate? How does it reach the right people? What form allows them to benefit from it? And what exchange ultimately returns to the founder? But the process begins before that value becomes an offer, a product, or a transaction. And this is one living economic process. Because to me, business is a sexual act. At the most basic level, business is an act of creation, right? It's taking life force energy and turning it into form. I want to fuck the universe with my business. I want what makes me come alive to become something extraordinarily valuable to other people. I want to receive the ideas that come through God, life, desire, obsession, intuition, experience, and my attention. And I want to give those ideas form as intellectual property, as art, as media, as products, as offers, as experiences, as systems, software, AI, as companies and assets. I want those creations to enter other people's lives and help them make money, save time, solve meaningful problems, make better decisions, and actually become more capable of creating what matters to them. And I want the value of that contribution to come back to me as profit, freedom, energy, relationships, wealth, and greater creative capacity. Right? So I can return to the work and create again, because that's the fucking point. right? We're not looking for an escape from the work. We're looking for the work to amplify our creative capacity, but at a higher level, from a larger foundation, with more of ourselves being available. And that's what I mean by this is one living economic process. Eros, erotic energy, is a creative life force energy moving through it. Source gives that energy a distinct frequency, right? This is the recognizable signature that's running through everything you believe, right? What you create, the results you produce, the standards you hold, the way you work. What I call your model of reality. Your model of reality is organized around a distinctive source frequency. And then your business becomes a geometry around it. The geometry determines who creates the value, how many people discover it, how they buy it, how they receive it, how many times it can be delivered, how much of your energy delivery consumes, where does the money go after. The geometry gives your frequency a durable form so that it can travel without losing its integrity. The market completes the exchange by paying you money. Your intelligence changes something for another person, right? They want the value, they receive it, they apply it, they benefit from it, and they pay for it. The return becomes proof, profit, relationships, assets, and wealth. Sovereignty returns money, time, energy, and choice to the person who then gets to create more of it. And this is Eros becoming geometry, geometry entering economics, and economics returning to Eros. So I see a paid to exist business as an instrument built around a living frequency. We're not building a soulless machine that makes money. You want your business to feel like an instrument that you play, something that's living, something that's alive. Because if your business isn't alive, you won't feel alive. Music explains how that relationship feels. So when you're doing the thing that you were put on this planet to do, right? The thing that God uniquely created you for, the work that actually turns you on, the different parts of the business can begin compounding into an extraordinary life. Your positioning attracts people you want to serve. Your offers monetize the value you want to deliver. Your delivery fulfills the promise you sold. And your calendar reflects the life you actually want. When you do it this way, the instrument is in tune. But when those parts pull you towards different customers, different work, different demands, different definitions of success, you feel the dissonance even when the business is profitable. It's like, going to a concert and the musician is playing on instruments that are really out of tune, right? They can do their best. They could be insanely skilled, but the music isn't going to feel pleasing or harmonious to the ear, right? But when their instrument is in tune and then they bring the same skill to it, it feels extraordinary, right? Music can put us in states of ecstasy. And that's what I think your business should do for you, right? Because when those elements become part of the same symphony, you get to experience what it feels like to no longer be divided against yourself. You're not fragmented. There aren't these different parts of you that are at odds with each other. The part of you that makes the money and the part of you that loves your life and the part of you that has hobbies and the part of you that spends time with your kids and the part of you that follows obsessions and deep rabbit holes, right? The part of you that wants to achieve, the part of you that wants to create extraordinary value, the part of you that wants to become wealthy. These parts stop fighting the part of you that wants meaning, freedom, creative expression, and a life that feels fully alive. You don't have to become one person to succeed and make money and another person to feel whole or creatively expressed. You may feel deeply alive when you're doing the work itself, but now the rest of the business begins to catch up. The market recognizes more of its value. Your offers capture more of it. The architecture allows more people to benefit from it. And the returns give you greater freedom to keep doing the work and developing it. Meaning, money, fulfillment, creative aliveness, and turn on become part of the same current. So there's less forcing. There's less internal negotiation. There's less self-betrayal. There's less tension between what success requires from you and who you're becoming. So your mind feels clear. Your heart feels open. Your body has energy. You feel connected to your intuition. You can connect to the higher intelligence that is source, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And you can download inspiration. You can see possibility. You can connect to a vision. And you can become more absorbed in the game that you're playing rather than be burdened by the machinery that surrounds it. You're not building a business so you can eventually get your life back. The business itself becomes one of the core ways you live your life fully. That is the complete possibility. So now let's give this living current, this electricity, a practical business body. And that's how one pattern acquires an entire world. Paid to exist begins with you, right? The work you're capable of becoming world-class at. The thing that you're obsessed about that you want to master over a lifetime. A worthy mission or a movement worth dedicating your life to. The customers and clients who can value it the most, the result that they're actually buying, the economics required to create exceptional profit, and the life that you actually want that success to make possible. So for all that to work, your genius, your market, and your business model have to fit one another. I call this the genius market model fit, right? Your genius is the particular combination of expertise, judgment, perspective, methods, and ability that lets you create unusual value through work that makes you feel fully alive. Your market is a group of people who recognize that value, they want the result that it creates, and they're willing to pay for it with money. And your model is the architecture through which that value is positioned, packaged, sold, delivered, and then captured economically in a way that it works both for them and for you. So when all three fit, as in when you fit your genius to a market in the right model, then the work feels alive for you. It feels valuable to the market, transferable through the business, and economically viable to keep doing it for a long time. This is why paid to exist reverses the conventional process, right? Most business programs start with a model, a strategy, a playbook, and then they teach you how to do that and run that and execute that more effectively. And then they just have you pour more gas on the fire, right? Do more, hire more people, spend more on ads, all the usual stuff. Because most people teaching business, they look at business through a very narrow lens, right? They're not even thinking about the business holistically. They're thinking about one component inside the business holistically. That's why there's people who've built entire, businesses and brands around running Facebook ads or around, teaching content. Now that's fine, right? We need those people. We need people to specialize, but you can't cobble together a bunch of specialized perspectives into a coherent business that feels good for you, right? Because most people, like teaching, coaching, and advising on business, will tell you to start with something that the market already wants to pay for, because that reduces the number of variables you have to solve for. And of course, that lets them, churn out testimonials and client case studies really quickly because they can get you a quick win. Now, that's good advice when someone is primarily motivated by solving the money problem. When you're just starting out, you don't know your head from your ass, it's kind of useful to just pick something that people are already buying and people are already paying for and just sell that and, get in the game. But once you as a founder escape a certain level of financial scarcity, that motivation is going to disappear. And along with that, you're going to lose the passion, the drive, and the edge that pushed you in the first place. And at that point, most people manufacture a crisis, a pivot, or burn the whole thing down. The people that are trying to sell you, point solutions and business growth strategies and tactics, they don't give a flying fuck about how much longevity you have, right? Generally, once they collect your cash and once they get the case study, it doesn't matter to them, like if the thing is not sustainable. It doesn't matter if you actually hate doing the thing that makes money. It doesn't matter if you don't actually enjoy it, if you're not turned on by it, and it's kind of a means to an end, right? Look around, seriously look around on the internet. You'll see people make a bunch of money with an offer, then self-destruct in one way or another very quickly after. All the people who are selling all the AI stuff right now, they were selling something totally different a year or two ago. And before that, they were selling something totally different. You see the same people show up, time and again with a brand new thing, and they're all about that. And then a couple of years later, they're gone from that space and they're chasing the next shiny trend. So most people are just chasing opportunities, right? And they're riding a wave up. And for some people, that's fine because they see business primarily as like, how do I make the most money as fast as I possibly can? And, I don't care if I have to start over every couple of years. And, that's great for them. We don't do that, right? Paid to exist is not about that, which is why paid to exist starts with the profit, the calendar, the founder's role, the work we want to do, the freedom and the life we want. Then we architect backwards and determine what has to be true about our positioning, our offers, our pricing, our acquisition, our delivery, our team, our systems, and our leverage. Of course, we still align the value with the market. It's kind of retarded to just make something up that we want to sell that no one wants, right? Someone still needs to have a desire for the thing that we're selling. But this is key. That's not the starting point because we want a business that turns us on and remains sustainable over a very long time. Because when a founder loses their passion and energy, it's basically game over for the business, right? So we have to protect those things at all costs. Counterintuitively, optimizing the business for how much it turns you on can actually make you significantly more money because you actually enjoy it, you actually want to grow it, and you actually make fewer stupid decisions. Also, healthy things grow, right? Unhealthy things die. If you make your business as healthy and sustainable as possible, you maximize the chances you make as much money as possible. There's also no single perfect business model, right? Every single person selling a business model will tell you that their model is perfect. It's not. Because there is no single perfect business model. There is no single perfect strategy. Everything works, right? Most models work. Every strategy works. You can build an audience on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or LinkedIn. It all works. But there's a model that's right for your expertise, for your market, for your desired role, and for your life, and for who you are, right? For what you want to do. Paid to exist combines the universal principle of leverage, economics, and value creation with a unique architecture that's designed around you, right? Your next level is probably not someone else's blueprint. It's a fingerprint. So think of it like a bespoke suit made out of sweatband material. That's how I describe this. So it's built to make exceptional amounts of money, but it's perfectly tailored, custom tailored, like a Savile Row suit to the shape of your expertise and your desired life. Very comfortable to operate inside of and live inside of. And it's flexible enough to evolve as you evolve. Like if your biceps get twice as big because you've been hitting the curls, like the clothes you're wearing should fit and flex with that, right? So your business model should do the same. Your business model should evolve with you through seasons, through rhythms, right? Like if you get married and you have kids, and like your model should allow you to grow as a person, to grow your family, right? To take care of yourself and take care of the people that matter, to have hobbies. Building your business around a model that worked for someone else is about as retarded and weird as borrowing their underwear. If the model isn't built for you, you will resent it and you will eventually find a way to sabotage it, get rid of it, or just burn it down. So our design standard is very concrete, but how you implement it is custom to you. So we want $500K to $3 million plus in annual profit. I've had clients push this model to 8 figures and above, but you usually need more infrastructure at that point, a bigger team, because you'll have lower margins, you'll have more complexity. So the model can scale beyond that, but you have to be willing to accept the trade-offs. But $500K to $3 million is the sweet spot. High margins, so at least 70%, but ideally closer to 90. Predictable recurring revenue. You want to stack revenue month over month. You don't want to start from scratch. You want a lean team or no team. So our goal is to create the thinnest, lightest, minimal business, right? That transfers the maximum value. So if you can use AI to do stuff that you would need a team for, you probably shouldn't grow a big team. If you don't like managing people, probably shouldn't grow a big team. If you want to have a big team and you want to have closers and you want to have people to do delivery, great, you can do that. Ideally, you work around 4 hours a day, 4 days a week with a mostly empty calendar. You can work more if you like, always great, but it's a bonus, right? If our business requires us to work, 30, 50, 60, 80 hours a week, like some of you, something's off. Like really something's off because you're not working on the right things. If you work on the right things, you should be able to run a very profitable business in about 3 to 4 hours a day. And most of the time that you're actually working should be spent doing the stuff that you're exceptionally good at and you genuinely want to keep doing. As in, your work should turn you on. Your work should give you more energy than it takes. If it doesn't, it will drain you, it will deplete you, and you will hate your fucking life, and you will hate your business, and you will resent it, and you're not going to want to show up for it, right? Profit should accumulate into assets and wealth outside the operating business. You need to learn how to build wealth. Making money is different than building wealth, right? I'm not going to go super deep on this right now, but you build wealth by owning assets. So you make money in the form of profit in the business, you take that and use that to buy assets, and those assets compound in value independent of your time, energy, effort. And then eventually they can pay for your monthly expenses. So your burn is covered to live, right? All your expenses are paid. And eventually they generate excess capital on top of your expenses being covered. And eventually you can dramatically increase, your spending and still have excess capital left over, which is where we want to be. So this is one living economic process, right? You stay connected to source, same place that Steve Jobs channeled the idea for the iPod, right? And Isaac Newton and, all the greats, that's where they get their ideas from. If you think you can do better than God, if you can do better than the universe, then you're missing out. You're not accessing and tapping the creative potential that's actually available to you. But that's the beginning, right? Like the universe, source, God, whatever, puts a desire, a vision, an idea in us. And then we take that and we turn that into signal, right? In the form of brand. We build an economic architecture around it in the form of structure, bring it to a market, we sell it, we make money, and we use that to create sovereignty, right? And we scale more, and then it becomes one living spiral. So source identifies what the business should be built around. So what do you see that other people don't? What are you unusually good at? What can you not stop exploring? What are you obsessed with? What's the work that people will pay you a lot of money for because it does something important for them? It's very critical. I'll double underline this. It's very critical that you build your business around your unfair advantage. It's intelligent to leverage the thing that is your unfair advantage. It's very unintelligent. I've used the R word a lot today. Hopefully it's weeded out the people who will get easily offended. It's extremely unintelligent to play a game where you don't have unfair advantages. I'll say this again. You want to build a business that feels easy for you. It feels like play for you and work for others, right? Feels natural. It's just who you are. It's just how you are. It's just how you think. Everything I'm doing, I stack the deck in my favor. I play my game. I don't play someone else's game. The goal, if you're not retarded, is to get paid to do stuff that feels less like work and more like play. You want your business to feel like play. You want your business to be a fun game you're playing. So the simplest source question is, if you had $100 million in the bank, what would you still choose to spend your life doing? Like, what would you do? Imagine you wake up tomorrow. There's $100 million in the bank, in your bank account. You open your phone. It's there. You see the number. Sure, like for a while, you'll take some vacations. Maybe you'll throw some parties. Maybe you'll buy some stuff. But then a year later, 2 years later, everything will get old. Sitting on a beach will get old. Going to brunch will get old. Right? What would you want to do? What is the thing that you would do if money was not a factor, if you didn't have to make money? You probably wouldn't allocate your time doing something you hate, right? You wouldn't sell your time talking to people, doing the things that you don't want to do, because at that point, you don't have to force yourself to do something just to make money. We can actually build that business around that stuff now. Like, you don't have to suffer for whatever made up number you have in your head until you get to do what you actually want to do. You can actually align these things now so that you're enjoying the whole process, not just when you make whatever money you think you need to make to feel at ease and safe and enough and feel like daddy's proud of you. So we want to answer that question, right? And then we want to find where the intersection point is between the thing we want to do, a result that the market values deeply, and the model that's capable of producing exceptional economics. When someone's already built something significant, like some of you are already doing multiple 6, multiple 7, sometimes multiple 8 figures. In your case, the work is to isolate the pieces that match these criteria and make those pieces the main thing. There are a few things that you're doing right now that you're spending your time doing that give you what I call unreasonable turn on, right? This is the work that you would feel compelled to explore, create, and become world-class at, even after money is completely handled. We should just do more of that now. Crazy idea. So at the center of Source is what I call your core life force generating activity. So this is the work that gives you far more energy than it takes, right? When you do this, you feel charged up. And at the same time, it helps other people make money, save time. It solves an expensive problem for them, right? It helps them create a result that they want. So this could be any number of modalities, right? It could be diagnosing, it could be writing, it could be teaching, it could be you creating frameworks, it could be you advising people. It's you coaching, it's you consulting, it's you sharing your expertise in a different form. It's you building a software around that. But we want to do this in a way that the combination is distinctly yours. Then, once we have the source, the signal makes the value within the source recognizable to the market. So you can have extraordinary expertise and still remain economically invisible and impoverished if the right people can't understand what makes your work different, why that matters, and why it's worth more. So signal turns your ideas, experiences, standards, stories, proof, and methods, and your way of seeing into IP and a category of one brand. I call this building a singularity brand. Why? Because you are a singularity. You are unique. You are NF1. There's no one like you. There's no one who's had the experiences you've had. There's no one who has the thoughts that you've thunk, right? You are unique. And value, from an economic sense, comes from the interplay between supply and demand. So if there's a lot of demand for something and the supply is just one, then its value approaches infinity because you can keep increasing demand for something, right? So you want to brand yourself as a singularity. You want to own the category. You want to create the category. If you notice, that's what I'm doing here. So when your signal is strong, the right buyer doesn't just understand what you do. It's not just about what you do. Hint, hint. Right? They recognize a way of seeing and producing the result that they can't find anywhere else. And in their head, they say, I want your way of doing this. Then we build a structure that takes the recognized value into something people can actually buy, receive, and benefit from. Right? Without the structure, attention remains attention. Right? People can consume your stuff on YouTube or Instagram or whatever the fuck. And, I was going to say LinkedIn, but we all know that that's the worst place on the planet. Like, I would rather stab myself with a fork than go post on LinkedIn. Nothing against LinkedIn. And if you use LinkedIn, but without structure, you can generate a lot of attention, but that doesn't translate into sales, doesn't translate into customer results, right? So we need the right structure. So structure determines who you serve, what result you promise, what you sell, what you charge, how those people enter, right? How the result gets delivered, how much access they get, and whether the economics work, right? Whether you can do it sustainably. So it gives your value a commercial form through intellectual property, products, offers, pricing, recurring revenue, delivery, all these things. So the goal is an offer architecture that makes the value easy to understand and compelling to buy. We want to have the least amount of friction for the right people to transact with you. It has to preserve what actually produces the result for a client and customer and capture enough of that value as profit. And then scale is what allows that value to propagate and travel farther, right? Without requiring a proportional increase in your time, effort, headcount, or complexity. So scale isn't simply about serving more people. It's about increasing the reach and economic impact of your expertise without diluting what makes it valuable or forcing you to perform every unit of value personally. And that's an important distinction. The way most people scale, it makes their business worse. It makes their life worse. It makes the customers get worse results, right? Because most people, as they scale, it dilutes, distorts, or creates dissonance in the founder's connection to their source. So we want to use leverage very intelligently. So media and automated acquisition help the right people discover and understand the work. Intellectual property, products, people you train, systems, software, AI, they carry the parts that don't require you. But you remain involved where your presence, judgment, creativity, and pattern recognition creates disproportionate value. So the outcome of this is that more people receive more value while your role becomes increasingly focused on the work that only you should do that actually generates energy for you. And then sovereignty is what all that success ultimately gives back to you. A business hasn't fully succeeded just because it makes more money, right? The return, which is return on life force, because every business is a vehicle to transform your life force into value, right? Value for them, value for you. So the return should make you less dependent, right? It should make the business less dependent on you, more capable, to make you more capable, as in it increases your capacity, and more free, and more resourced. Resourced in all the ways, resourced in terms of energy, calm, peace, aliveness, but also money, right? So profit becomes reserves, investments, equity, and wealth outside the operating business. And leverage gives you back time. And time returns energy, relationships, creative space, and choice. So you gain the freedom to reject opportunities you don't want, make decisions without panic, and evolve beyond what the market already rewards. A lot of people, they get captured by the audience and their content, and they get captured by the market in terms of their business. Because you want to be able to choose what you work on, right? From your sovereignty, from your sovereign ability to choose, not because there's a compulsion or imperative because you need to make payroll next month. Then you return the source with more intellectual property, more audience, more proof, more systems, more capital, more freedom, and way more creative capacity than before. So success gives you more of yourself back, and then another turn of the spiral begins. This is building a business as an organism instead of an organization. We want our business to be a living organism. So source generates the value, signal makes it recognizable, structure makes it viable and transferable, scale allows it to travel, sovereignty returns the profit, freedom, and creative capacity back to you. So in market language, source governs value creation. Signal creates differentiation. Structure determines monetization. Scale creates leverage. And sovereignty turns success into compounding. And then you spiral again from a larger base. So once you know what the business is built around and how the 5 movements work, productization becomes much more rigorous than simply just packaging what you know, right? That's for amateurs. Because the goal isn't just to turn your expertise into a course, a framework, or a library of content. The real goal is to identify what actually causes the customer's result and build the right carrier for that value. A carrier is just the form through which a customer receives what they need from you. Sometimes it's information, right? Sometimes it's the right idea at the right time, a distinction, a framework, an instruction. Sometimes it's implementation, right? You or your team doing something for them. Because sometimes knowing what to do isn't enough. Someone or something has to help them do it. And that could just be accountability as well, right? And support and guidance, mentorship. Sometimes the customer needs calibration. They need help choosing the right move. They need help sequencing it correctly, right? They need help seeing what they can't see from inside the problem and adjusting and fine-tuning as reality changes. This is what I help people do in the accelerator, right? It's less traditional coaching, it's more calibration. It's not leader to follower, it's leader to leader. Like I'm more interested in empowering people and teaching them how to like have a relationship with business. Like, you know, that scene in the Matrix when Neo finally gets it and he's able to bend spoons and stop bullets. Like that's what I really want you to be able to do. Like I'm not interested in having a bunch of people who need me. Because most people, they create codependence with their clients. And if you create codependence for your clients, if you create conditions where your clients need you and you're taking their freedom away, you're also giving your freedom away. If you want to be free, you have to allow them to be free, right? If you want your sovereignty, you have to give them their sovereignty. And then sometimes the environment creates the result, right? This could be a community, shared standards, accountability, could be software, right? Or access to other people who are playing the same game. And that's what I created the Pay to Exist OS for. Sometimes your direct, rare judgment, your perception, your creativity remains essential, but that's also where a disproportionate amount of value gets created. Right? Like one of my clients runs a $400 million a year business. Like there's an insane amount of leverage that can be created from like one insight, right? So a 5-minute conversation is extraordinarily valuable because of the amount of leverage there is. And I actually enjoy that, right? I enjoy being in the arena. I enjoy being in the game. I enjoy being in the trenches I don't want to abstract myself and scale myself out of the thing where there's insane asymmetry. So the law here is that a carrier succeeds when it preserves enough of the intelligence required to create the intended outcome. So if the result depends on judgment and you replace that judgment with information, the offer may become easier to scale, but less capable of producing the result. So we have to scale very intentionally, as you can see, right? Because you may do something that on paper seems like the right thing, but it can actually destroy the business over time. If information tools or trained people could reproduce the result, but you keep delivering everything personally, then the result may stay strong while the business has no leverage. So the design problem is to preserve what's essential and give every other part of value a form that allows it to travel much further than your personal time. So that gives us 3 distinct distances from source, right? Because you are the holder of the source frequency that your entire model of reality and your entire expertise is based on. And the closer someone is to that, the more proximity they have to you. The further someone is, the less proximity they have. And so that gives us a way to create leverage, and really a way to layer leverage, because leverage is layered. Leverage is accumulated. Leverage is stacked. So the world is encoded intelligence, right? That's the outermost. And there you can have content, curriculum, products, tools, software, AI. And really it's a self-directed space. And therefore it's, you can also price it more competitively because you can serve a much higher volume of people. Because you want to have, if you want to scale effectively and efficiently, you want to have 2 levers on scaling. You want to have volume-based scaling and you want to have pricing-based scaling. Volume-based scaling gives you a lower marginal cost of replication, a lower cost basis and level of complexity and service debt when you enroll someone, and therefore a much higher ceiling in terms of how many people you can serve. So in my case, the world is the pay to exist OS, and I can serve thousands of people in there. The field is relational intelligence. So for me, this is the accelerator. Where there's community, there's shared standards, there's direct feedback, there's collective intelligence, right? And there's live calibration. So people here aren't just consuming information, they're learning and they're making better decisions inside an environment that's designed around the game that you're creating for people to play. You can, make this very conventional. Like, most such spaces, most, group-based offerings are they come with lots of names, but it's basically, a format where the person running it just offers fractional consulting to all the people. And that's totally fine. But to make this layer truly scalable, you need the space itself to hold value. So you want to create a game. You want to create a game based on your model of reality. And when you do this well, then there's less pressure on you, it's less reliant on you, and it's way more scalable. And then source is direct access to your rarest judgment, your perception, your creativity, and intervention, right? This is where someone can work with you one-on-one. This is where someone can hire you to implement something for them, you or your team, right? This is where they can spend a day with you that changes the course of their life or business. This is where your presence can change something very consequential. It can reveal what someone can't see alone, or often it can help, someone prevent a very expensive mistake. So different kinds of value belong at different distances from source. And you can add leverage progressively as the intelligence becomes more clear and transferable. So most expertise businesses begin close to source. So you work directly with customers and clients. You apply your judgment personally. You watch what actually creates the result. You discover the patterns hidden inside your expertise. Once those patterns become clear, you can add the next layer, which could be the relational layer, a group layer. Allowing one explanation, distinction, demonstration, or calibration to serve several people at once. So this is one to many. Then if you want, you can train other people to carry the parts of the work that still depend on human relationship and judgment, but no longer require yours specifically. And then the repeatable information can become media, right? Content, curriculum, courses, frameworks, diagnostics, tools, and other forms that people can use without anyone delivering them live. And when the underlying decisions or processes can be expressed clearly enough, code can carry them through software, automation, and AI. So this is not a rigid leverage ladder. The latter layers don't have to replace the earlier ones, right? You may choose to keep doing a small amount of direct work at source and build a multi-million-dollar business, because that's where you create the most value. You can discover what comes next, and you stay very tightly connected to the market. See, you should build this based on yourself, not on any kind of prescriptive roadmap or blueprint. But the goal is for us to make our time more valuable. So we want to increase our effective hourly rate. And the way to do that is by adding leverage. So over time, we want to add layers of leverage around the work. So your direct presence stays reserved for the places where it matters the most, right? And then groups, trained people, media, and code can allow everything else to travel further. So like I said, in my case, the Pay to Exist OS is my world and the accelerator is my field. They're not separate offers for different kinds of people. This is not the conventional, highly retarded way of doing things, which is, have a low ticket thing and then have a high ticket thing and then have this other thing. And each one serves a different person and you grade your market. These are low caliber people and these are, sophisticated people because they make more money. Like that is a very inefficient and unintelligent way to operate. This is different depths of access to the same philosophy, the same principles, and the same methodology to the same core group of people who are trying to solve the same core set of problems and want the same set of outcomes wrapped in the same values, perspectives, and model of reality that can only originate from you. So the OS gives you the encoded intelligence, the tools, the community, and the live learning environment to build independently. The accelerator brings your specific business closer to source, basically me, through direct diagnosis, feedback, and calibration, right? So greater proximity costs more because the decisions are more consequential and the system is hard to see accurately from the inside. Like whatever you're building, you're kind of stuck inside that perspective, right? And the right intervention can save you months or years of work, right? Because there's a huge opportunity cost to you not making twice, thrice, or like 5x the money that you could be making, right? And there's a lot of expensive mistakes that people make because they don't have the right perspective. So that can naturally be priced higher. This is how intelligence travels without destroying the thing that actually made it valuable in the first place. And this matters because leverage can actually fail in several ways. So I told you about this, right? Dilution happens when intelligence becomes more generic as it travels. So the business reaches more people, but less of what made the work distinctive or effective actually reaches them. Distortion happens when the carrier changes the meaning, the standards, or the causal logic of the work. So the content, the offer, the team, or methodology still transmits something, but it no longer accurately transmits your way of producing the result. It gets distorted from the source, right? Dissonance happens when the different expressions stop reinforcing each other. So over time, there's entropy, there's complexity, there's fragmentation, right? You inject a little chaos into the business. So your content attracts one person, you get bored, you launch something that, new offer promises something else. Your delivery creates a slightly different experience. And then the market and the business pulls you towards something that you're doing that, makes cash now, but It's not what you actually want to be doing. And then source cannibalization happens when the business consumes your intelligence, your attention, your creativity, and reputation and energy faster than it turns them into intellectual property, capability, assets, and greater creative capacity. Right? That's the deeper pattern inside Pay to Perform. The business keeps returning to source for another piece of content, another sale, another decision, another intervention, another injection of energy, without building enough capacity to actually carry that value forward. So revenue may keep growing while the source producing it becomes increasingly depleted. We don't want to do this. We don't want to build in a way, we don't want to scale in a way that creates dilution, distortion, or dissonance, right? Those are the three failure modes. Healthy leverage does the opposite. Healthy leverage allows the value to transfer further while preserving its integrity, strengthening the surrounding architecture, and returning enough life force to regenerate source. To put it simply, as you grow, you should be able to have enough white space on your calendar, enough inner peace in your mind, enough safety and regulation and resilience in your nervous system, enough aliveness and turn on and inspiration that you fall more in love with the work, that you keep getting more ideas, right? That you are in this constant stream of creative inspiration. So what we want to do is we want to scale the positive pattern and build the asset system. So the question is, how do we take that same intelligence and strengthen the entire business instead of creating another collection of disconnected parts? So we use fractal architecture so that the same body of intellectual property can actually strengthen your content, your positioning, your offers, your acquisition, your delivery, your systems and assets, instead of every part becoming another disconnected machine. So one important insight that you have becomes IP. That IP becomes content. That content attracts an audience around the idea and makes the brand more recognizable. Right? A stronger brand creates more trust, more demand, and more pricing power for the offers that are actually built around that IP. These offers bring the right customers into the business. These customers receive the same underlying intelligence at the depth and proximity that's appropriate for the result that they need. Because one person may need a product, a framework, a diagnostic, or a piece of software. Someone else may need community feedback, accountability, or implementation support. Right? A smaller number of people may need your direct judgment applied to a consequential decision or outcome that they're trying to solve for. These aren't separate methodologies or separate delivery infrastructures. This is key. They're different expressions of the same body of intelligence, right? This allows the business to serve way more people without giving everyone the same level of founder access, which is expensive, or building a completely separate delivery system for every offer. So it also keeps you close to the places where your presence creates disproportionate value. So IP, people, systems, software, and AI do a lot of the stuff that don't require you. And at every level, contact with the market, contact with your customers and clients, and getting them results creates proof, stories, insights, and distinctions. And those things deepen the IP and improve the entire delivery architecture. And the improved intellectual property actually strengthens the next generation of content, products, and delivery. So the whole thing is ever evolving, right? So your strongest ideas, proof, and signal become a compounding acquisition engine. And as you do this, you accumulate evergreen media assets, sales assets, emails, funnels, paid distribution, referrals, and partnerships that keep attracting, educating, and converting the right people. And over time, this happens increasingly without requiring you to publish every day, launch constantly, or personally close every sale. Because systems and AI can preserve repeated explanations and decisions, so the business doesn't have to recreate them every time. And the profit that you make from this, it funds better media, builds stronger products, more distribution, more assets that create more freedom and wealth. And of course, that freedom gives you more time and creative capacity to go back to the work, go deeper, and create again. So this is how a business actually begins functioning like a compounding loop. Every part strengthens the whole, right? So IP strengthens content, content builds audience and brand creates demand, offers give the right people a way to buy. Fractal delivery gives each customer the right depth of value and proximity. Customer results create proof inside a new IP. Your systems and AI preserve what works. Profit creates assets and freedom, and that freedom returns you to creation. So every part strengthens the whole. Every new cycle begins with more IP, bigger audience, more trust, more proof, more capacity, and more capital. That's the difference between growing through accumulation and growing through fractal architecture. Accumulation, which is the game most people play, it gives the founder more stuff to do and more things to maintain. Fractal architecture allows for one very coherent, potent body of work to become more valuable through every new expression of it. So we want to scale the pattern rather than the performance, right? Because the business also learns how to retain value from your previous acts of creation. Like you're still getting paid from work you did years ago, right? Instead of ending every month with only that month's revenue, the business keeps accumulating things that make the next month easier. That's the business that feels more like a flywheel than like a treadmill. If you're on a treadmill, no matter how much you run, it's just as hard. If you're on a flywheel, the more you run, the faster you go and the easier it gets. We do this by building an exponential asset ecosystem, right? So we have audience assets, which are our email list, our community, our customer relationships, our owned distribution. Our brand assets, which is our public body of work, our unique signal, public proof, reputation, trust, content, category ownership. We have income assets, like products, offers, recurring revenue, media, acquisition systems, sales and delivery systems, sometimes licensing, sometimes software. And then we have wealth assets, cash, reserves, investments, equity, ownership in things that actually give us freedom to actually choose what we want to do, what we want to create, who do we want to work with, and sometimes if we want to work at all, right? Sometimes you may want to take 6 months off. You should have the option to do that. Together, this creates your exponential asset ecosystem because your audience assets, which is, the people who follow you on socials, we want to turn those people and that asset into brand assets, right? They end up on your email list. They become a lead. They give you a way to contact them. And then those people, we create pathways for them to become customers and clients through offers, which generates us income, right? We take that income, we buy wealth assets, we deploy it into growing our wealth assets. So over time, we develop a much bigger net worth that's outside our business, which allows us more optionality, which allows us to reinvest back. And this becomes a compounding flywheel. This is the intelligent way to play the game, right? So it's the accumulated audience, brand, income, and wealth assets that actually allow every new cycle to begin with what's already working and compound on top. You stop returning to zero. Okay. So when the same core value runs through your brand, your IP, your products, your content, your acquisition, your delivery, and assets, then the different parts of your business stop pulling you in different directions. They actually start reinforcing each other, right? So they start helping one another work better because the business will only grow as far as the weakest relationship will allow. And I call this the coherence ceiling. So basically, the least coherent relationship in the business determines its current ceiling. So weak acquisition may look like a traffic problem on the surface, right? Like, hey, I don't have enough people. I need more leads. But the cause could actually be a diluted signal. Like you're just too comparable. Like there's no distinction. You have no real position in the market. So people don't have a compelling reason to pay attention to you. So it can look like one issue, but it can actually be a different issue, right? Because you're always limited by the least coherent relationship in your business. So poor conversion on the surface may look like a sales problem, but it can actually begin with an offer that makes the value difficult to understand or buy. Founder exhaustion may look like a time management issue, but it could actually be an issue with the delivery model because too much is dependent on you. Team complexity may look like a people problem, but it could actually be an issue with the offer ecosystem that's built around too much customization and too many exceptions, right? Resistance to scaling may look like, oh, you just need more leads, or, you need the next funnel, or you need mindset work, right? Fear and self-sabotage. But it may be none of those things. May actually be that, you as the founder are very intelligently sensing that scaling is going to give you more of a future that you don't want. So the visible symptom and the actual constraint are often in different parts of the business. This is where an external perspective and mentorship is helpful. And it's also where, if you try to optimize each part separately, because someone's selling you like a funnel thing, and someone else is selling you an ad thing, and someone else is selling you an offer thing, you can keep solving, you can keep playing whack-a-mole, and the underlying problem remains completely untouched. And now it's, a year later, 2 years later, you spend a bunch of money, you waste a bunch of time, you've lost a bunch of energy, and now you are losing hope in your ability to actually grow this thing. Which is why the governing design law of pay to exist is that architecture must amplify source without distorting signal. What that means in practical terms, as your value moves through positioning, content, offers, delivery, people, system, software, and AI, it still has to carry the ideas, standards, judgment, and result that made it valuable in the first place. So the business should help more people receive that value without flattening it into something generic or forcing you to recreate it personally every time. So paid to exist ultimately is about creating what I call a business singularity. You basically organize the business around your highest value work until everything you create, sell, build, and accumulate strengthens the same body of work, right? Everything reinforces itself. Content, brand, offers, IP, delivery, right? And the profits help you build more assets and wealth outside the business. The result of this is what I call scaling flow. A business that becomes more profitable, more leveraged, more valuable, and more alive as it grows, because each part increasingly feeds the other and the whole thing feeds you back. Subjectively, scaling flow feels like being in a fucking flow state with your entire business. A few of my clients are in this right now, and it's an extraordinary place to be. You're deeply absorbed in the work that energizes you. You're clear on what matters. You know exactly what to do. You're not wasting your time with bullshit. And each thing you create naturally creates momentum for the next thing. So everything is compounding. There's less forcing, less fragmentation, less starting over. And the whole business starts to feel like one coherent movement. It carries you forward as you carry it forward. You stop experiencing the business as a collection of things you have to make work. Instead, it feels like one living body of work that you get to keep deepening. Revenue and profit increase without your calendar filling up at the same rate. And, getting more customers and clients doesn't automatically require more employees or more work from you. And your best ideas get used hundreds of thousands of times instead of just disappearing after one conversation, right? Your content, your IP, your offers, your systems, your customer results make the next sale easier instead of forcing you to start from zero. And because you're spending most of your time doing work that energizes you, growth actually gives you momentum instead of draining it. And that's the business architecture becoming singular, right? That's the economic and lived experience of scaling flow. Now, we talked a lot about the business, but we also have to talk about you, which is the founder that's actually inside the architecture. Because the business isn't separate from the person building it, right? It's a reflection of you. So it makes your relationship with desire, intimacy, consent, receiving, containment, power, boundaries, choice actually visible. So desire shows up in what you permit yourself to pursue and what you keep dismissing because it feels too ambitious, too strange, too alive, or too distinctly yours, or sometimes even too risky. Intimacy shows up in how accurately you perceive the customer. All business problems occur because of a lack of intimacy. Do you understand what they actually want? Do you actually understand what you want? Do you even understand what game you're playing, right? Do you get what's preventing them from getting what they want? Do you understand deeply what would create the result? Consent also shows up in how you sell. Can the buyer make a clear, informed choice without pressure, disguise, or manipulation? Do you have to keep chasing, pushing, persuading, right? Fast action bonuses. Receiving shows up in your pricing and your relationship with money. Can you ask for and accept an appropriate return for the value that you create? Containment shows up in your promises, in your boundaries, in your offers, not just to people outside you, but to yourself. Does the work have enough structure to protect the customer, the result, and your own energy? Power shows up in leadership and how you allocate capital. What do you choose to fund? What do you refuse to subsidize? What decisions do you keep? How much authority do you allow other people to hold? And choice shows up in whether the business expands your ability to decide how you work, who you serve, and what you create, and what you become next. Or are you losing choice? Are you becoming less free? And so this is what I mean when I say how you fuck is how you build. How you fuck is how you build, right? What shows up in the bedroom shows up in, well, no one's actually in a boardroom anymore, but you get the idea, right? The phrase might be provocative, but the point that I want to make is very practical. Because the way you relate to desire, other people, money, boundaries, power, and freedom will eventually show up in the architecture and economics of your business. That's why changing the external business without changing the founder's underlying patterns can only take you so far. You can only redesign the entire business so much until you realize that you keep recreating the same problems because of the person who's actually behind the whole thing, right? You can hire someone and keep doing their job because you don't trust them. You can finally create space in your calendar and then immediately fill it because you don't know what to do with yourself. Revenue may slow down 1 month, and then you abandon the strategy that you just started on to launch something totally different, right? You say you want a business that doesn't depend on you, but you still are micromanaging everything and continue to be involved in every decision, right? You raise your prices and then you compensate by over delivering. That's why pay to exist works on both sides. We redesign how the business operates, and then we change the patterns that would otherwise recreate the same limitations inside a new architecture. Because sovereignty exists actually across 3 dimensions. So there's inner sovereignty, which is your psychological and emotional ability to actually run the business you say you want. You can make bigger decisions without needing constant certainty. You can delegate without grabbing control back. You can experience a slow month without blowing up the strategy. You can say no to money that pulls you away from the business you actually want. And you can succeed without constantly manufacturing urgency just to feel productive. Economic sovereignty means that your business produces enough profit to give you real economic choice, right? Most people, they don't make the choices that they want in life because of money, right? Money decides what they buy at the grocery store. Money decides if they want to fly economy or first class. Money decides, what they order at the restaurant, if they get the ribeye or if they choose for the cheaper, New York strip. Money decides like what school you send your kids to. Money decides like, how you like treat your partner when there's something to celebrate. Like, money is a really real thing. Money is a real constraint. And economic sovereignty is something extremely important to create because it's really freeing. It's really fun. It's really enjoyable to not think about money every time you make a decision. So you want to build cash reserves. You want to invest outside the business. You want to accumulate assets. You want to be able to survive a bad year without panic, right? You want to be able to walk away from customers or opportunities you don't want, right? Eventually, and I know this is a journey, you want to be able to work because you choose to, not because your bills that are coming due require you to work more, right? So that leads us to creative sovereignty. Creative sovereignty is the freedom to build, speak, sell, create, evolve, refuse, and choose without constantly asking the market or your peers or a past version of you for permission. Most people, they don't feel like they can say what they want to say, right? They can't express themselves authentically. You look at their fucking content and they're robots. They're saying all the things they think they need to say to get people to think a certain thing about them so that they can eventually buy from them and give them money and approve of them, right? So I don't know about you, but I don't want to play a fucking character on the internet. I just want to be me. I want to say what's on my mind. I want to articulate my ideas. And if I change my mind on something, I want that to be okay too. I don't want someone else to decide how I express myself. Most people who have any sort of personal brand feel trapped by the character they've built, by the persona that they project. It's the same thing with their offers. You should be able to change an offer because you've outgrown it. It doesn't resonate anymore. You should be able to say what you actually believe, even when it's not the safest positioning, right? You want to be able to spend 6 months creating something that really matters to you instead of just feeding the fucking algorithm every day. You want to be able to turn down profitable work. You want to be able to say no to money because you don't want your fucking life organized around it. Together, like when you do this right, and you stack these 3 forms of sovereignty, inner sovereignty, creative sovereignty, and economic sovereignty, you get the complete return on life force. You get money, meaning, mojo, freedom, and wealth, right? The more success you create, the bigger the business gets, the more money it makes, the better every aspect of your life gets. And it gives you more time, more energy, more money, and more freedom to go back to source and create again, right? So it becomes a living, breathing circuit. And then you begin another turn of the spiral. So right now, if you're still here and you don't have the attention span of a goldfish, you're actually watching the model work. I'm demonstrating every single thing that I'm teaching you, right? Because I run the original pay to exist business. My business is the exact instantiation of this entire model, this entire philosophy, this entire ideology, this entire architecture. So these ideas come from the work that I feel compelled to explore. For me, it's entrepreneurship, eros and erotic energy, fractal mathematics, psychology, economics, art, human potential, the architecture of creation, spirituality, God. So I've turned these ideas into intellectual property and a signal that you can experience, that you're experiencing right now. Media allowed that signal to reach you without requiring you to have a private conversation with me. It's actually better that you're watching this than talking to me, because like that would be a very onerous thing to do, right? So if these ideas change how you see your business and they resonate strongly enough that you feel compelled to enter pay to exist, to join the accelerator, some of that value comes back to me as money, attention, trust, relationship, and resources. Those resources give me more freedom to research, create, deepen the work, and create more value for the people I'm serving. Right? The way this sells demonstrates the philosophy it's selling. And your reaction demonstrates the purpose of a high fidelity signal. Because some people will hear God, Eros, sacred geometry, intellectual property, AI, profit, wealth, retards in the same argument. And they'll decide that they want a more conventional room. And that's okay. There's lots of people out there who will happily take your money. But the right person, for me, the person who I created this for, right? That person, if that's you, you will recognize the integration that you've been looking for your entire fucking life. Because when a signal is expressed with enough clarity and consistency and potency, an audience becomes way more than just a collection of people consuming information. A world begins to form around it. That world develops its own recognizable worldview, language, standards, rituals, proof, and experiences, right? It's a function of my model of reality. You are right now experiencing the world through my eyes. And the people inside it begin using and transmitting its distinctions themselves, right? The people who work with me start adopting this language. They start identifying as people who get paid to exist, right? And that's what I mean when I say culture is scaled frequency. Content becomes the public surface of the world. Offers become the doorways into it. Products become portable artifacts that people can use and share. Community becomes shared participation in the ideas, standards, practices, and work. So the audience isn't just receiving information from you. At its essence, the physics of it is, yes, that is correct. But it's way more of an energetic experience. It becomes a field where participants help each other understand the work, apply it, raise the standard, calibrate closer to it, and strengthen the culture. So I'd rather build with 1,000 founders who deeply want this in its purest form than dilute it into something that a much larger audience finds vaguely agreeable or palatable, right? So that's my 1,000-person frame behind Pay to Exist. My plan to become a billionaire is by creating $1 billion of value. The way I'm going to do that is by helping 1,000 expert entrepreneurs make an extra $1 million by helping them get paid to exist, right? Because that's so much more of a fun game for me to play. Most people who teach you about business, programs, masterminds, all those things, coaches, consultants, they will try to push you into, generally 2 founder identities. So most people, they will train you to be a good operator, right? Or at best, a strategist. Because the operator runs the machine. They do the work, right? They execute, they manage, they solve problems, they keep the business moving. The strategist designs the machine, right? So this archetype chooses the market, the model, the positioning, the offers, the people, the systems. Both these things matter, right? But Pay to Exist proposes an evolution beyond both these levels. We are playing what to me is the highest level of the entrepreneurship game. The founder becomes receptive enough to recognize what wants to emerge, original enough to give it an unmistakable expression, and commercially precise enough to build an economic architecture that's capable of carrying it. So the business stops being nothing more than a machine to run or design. So in the conventional paradigm, the business is basically a machine that you run or design. In the Pay to Exist paradigm, It becomes a living instrument that you can keep playing as you evolve. And inside my world, I call this founder who gets paid to exist, and you're invited to join us inside and step into this identity for yourself. We call ourselves exponentialists. The exponentialist operates at the intersection of three capacities: the mystic, the artist, and the architect. The mystic attunes to source and receives divine guidance, inspiration, intuitive knowing, right? This is the part of you that can be quiet enough to hear the question that you can't stop thinking about, the possibility that keeps pulling at you, the work that wants to exist before the market has given you permission. The mystic protects your connection to mystery, to intuition, to desire, to God, to the universe, right? This larger, deeper intelligence that's moving through your life. The artist gives that invisible intelligence a completely original expression, right? The artist turns what they see and feel into language, ideas, stories, frameworks, products, experiences, taste, narrative that another person can actually perceive. So the artist refuses to sand away everything that is strange, alive, and unmistakably theirs just to make the work easier to explain or sell. The artist is also not, a photocopy machine. They're not just imitating what someone else is saying because they see expression as a means to an end. They value originality. They want to create something that's unique. They want to create, the thing that's distinct to them. They want to sing their song. The architect loves the work enough to make it real by building the right economic structure around it. So the architect builds the positioning, the offers, the acquisition, the delivery, the systems, right? The assets that allow the creation to reach more people, change something meaningful for them, and keep existing long beyond the original moment of inspiration. So without the mystic, you can build an impressive machine around work that has no soul. Without the artist, what wants to emerge stays trapped inside you or becomes another imitation of what already exists. Without the architect, the work may be profound and beautiful, but it never actually develops the commercial structure required to reach people, to sustain you as the creator, or to realize its potential in the world. So the exponentialist is the identity we operate from that integrates all three, right? As an exponentialist, you can listen deeply enough to receive what's uniquely yours. You get the divine guidance, you get the inspiration, and you can create courageously enough to give it unmistakable form. And you can build precisely enough for that creation to produce extraordinary value, profit, freedom, and wealth. So the mystic hears the music. The architect builds the instrument capable of carrying it into the world. And the artist plays it, right? So people often enter paid to exist because they have a practical problem that's become impossible to ignore. And this could be weak differentiation, fragmented offers, inconsistent acquisition, delivery that's too dependent on you, or a business that's just getting too heavy as it grows. But the right people, they stay because they find something larger, something deeper, something more profound than just a solution to that current bottleneck. They find a philosophy for turning entrepreneurship into an infinite game of self-actualization, where becoming more fully themselves, creating the work that only they can create, serving others at the highest level, and becoming extraordinarily wealthy are all part of the same pursuit. It's one integrated system, right? They find an operating system that makes their positioning, offers, delivery, assets, and the life's work that they're here to create all come into unification. They find an operating system that unifies their positioning, their offer, their acquisition, their delivery, their assets, and their life's work. They find a community of founders who share their ambitions and their standard and actually see the world through this lens. And they find a body of work that they can keep deepening as the business evolves. And yes, they get to solve today's constraint, but they do it inside a game that's worth playing for years. So if you decide to join us inside, you don't have to rebuild everything all at once. You just start with the problem that's currently costing you the most money, energy, or opportunity. For some founders, the constraint is value creation. So the business is built only around part of your expertise, part of your genius, part of your judgment. So they begin by clarifying the work through which they can create the greatest value and what should become the business's source. For others, it's differentiation. So if the market sees them as comparable, their best ideas are all scattered, their positioning says one thing, their content explores another, their offers give buyers no clear reason to choose them. So they begin with the singularity brand, right? They begin refining their positioning. They begin with world building, right? They begin by refining their signal. For others, it's monetization. So they have expertise and trust, but their products, offers, pricing, their customer journey, or their conversion path leaves money on the table. So buyers can't see the full value, offers underprice it, or there's simply not enough ways to buy it. So they begin with productization, offer architecture, pricing, sales, and recurring revenue. And for others, it's leverage. So you already have demand, right? But acquisition requires constant effort. Delivery depends too much on you, or the business has become too heavy. So you begin with acquisition, workshops, webinars, VSLs, paid traffic, delivery systems, assets, software, AI. And for others, it's compounding. So the business generates revenue, but too little of today's work becomes IP, audience, recurring income, systems, assets, and wealth that'll actually keep stacking tomorrow. So they begin with margins, their role as a founder, the calendar, right? The creation of assets where success becomes greater sovereignty. So your first 90 days aren't about doing everything. It's just about installing the highest leverage layer of the model. And how quickly the financial outcome shows up, it depends on what you already have in place. If you come in with proven product market fit, a responsive audience, an email list, existing demand, or other distribution, then correcting the right offer, positioning, or monetization constraint can generate significant cash pretty quickly. But if you've proven expertise in customer results, but you don't yet have reliable distribution, the first step is going to be building the positioning, the offer, the acquisition engine that's going to make that same level of growth possible. Both kinds of people are going to get results. They just begin at different points in the architecture. Depending on your existing assets, distribution, and execution, the right architectural move can add $30K to $100K or more in recurring monthly profit in the first 90 days. So you enter through the constraint that you can see, and the 5 movements help you understand how that constraint relates to the rest of the business. And then you choose how much proximity support you want while solving it. So every level gives you access to the same pay-to-exist philosophy, operating system, training, tools, AI resources, and community. You get to choose how much proximity, support, feedback, and velocity you actually want. So the pay-to-exist OS is the self-directed path. And choose this if you just want to sniff around before you go deeper, or if you're comfortable identifying your constraint, finding the relevant tools, implementing independently, right? You want to do it yourself. You want to do it at your own time. You want to consume the stuff. You want to really get into it. Inside pay-to-exist OS, you get more than 20 in-depth trainings along with tools, templates, AI resources, and of course, a community of founders building the same kind of business. You also get access to me through live monthly workshops where I teach new strategies, answer questions, and share what's working in the market right now. So the OS gives you the complete world, the encoded intelligence, the resources, the community, the standards, and the live learning environment you need to build your version of this model. You may also want to choose the accelerator. So the accelerator is the field. This is the place for you if you want greater proximity to me and you want my pattern recognition applied directly to your business, your positioning, your offers, your economics, your acquisition, your delivery, your team. And we meet twice a week on calls. And we actually diagnose what's happening in your business, right? What's constraining the business? What's the next best, highest leverage move? How to design your architecture, how to design your positioning, how to design your brand. And we keep you focused on the exact next thing required to produce the result. And inside the accelerator, you basically get direct feedback. You get direct calibration, both on your inner architecture, your outer architecture, and really how to actually expand your vision and your capacity for the business that you're capable of building. And this is useful when, you're stuck inside your perspective, inside your business, and you can't actually diagnose and see your business from the inside as much as someone else can from the outside. And, maybe you're making decisions that are very consequential, and making the wrong move would cost you months or lots of money. And you also see the opportunity on the table. You value mentorship, you'd value feedback, and you'd rather pay for significant velocity. And this is perfect for you if you value speed and ease. You want to go faster, you want to get the shortest path to your goals, and you want the right support doing it. It's the same philosophy, same process, same destination. And the difference is how much direct support, calibration, and velocity you want building it. So there's a version of your business that's built around your expertise that produces $500K to $3 million in revenue, in profit. It runs with high margins, a lean team, and it leaves you with a mostly empty calendar. Right? You spend your working hours doing what you love, what you're exceptional at, what you're world-class at. And the right people, they recognize the value of that work. They know how to buy it. They know how to receive it through the carrier and the proximity capable of producing the result. And you get paid exceptionally well for it. Your positioning, content, offers, acquisition, delivery, systems, and assets, they all strengthen the same body of work. Making money feels like expression rather than performance. Growth gives you more energy, freedom, and creative capacity. The business becomes the economic engine behind your masterpiece and the extraordinary life that you want to live. And every year begins from a larger foundation because what you've already created continues to produce value. The question isn't whether you can keep operating the business you already have. You know you can, right? The question is, how much longer do you want to operate a business that expresses, monetizes, and compounds only a tiny fraction of what you become? And how soon do you want to start building the definitive business and body of work of your life? How soon do you want to start building your masterpiece? So if you're ready, follow the link below, jump into Pay to Exist, choose Pay to Exist OS if you want the complete operating system, tools, and community, and if you're comfortable implementing by yourself. Choose the accelerator if you want my feedback, my support, my calibration, my insights, and my pattern recognition applied directly to your business. The ultimate goal is not freedom from work. It's freedom to spend your life doing the work that you would never want to retire from. So let's build the instrument capable of playing the symphony that you were uniquely designed to bring into the world, and let's make you exceptionally well paid for playing it.